Hello, everybody. Yes, it's me again with another show. On Sunday, I do two shows. One is looking at the mental health of educators and students. And this one is the normal weekly show looking at the Female Educators Roundtable, what it was like for educators, what it was like for educators teaching online during the first time in terms of the pandemic when it first started. As we know, educators are not and was not trained on the online platform, so we had to train ourselves. And I must say, educators have done a fantastic job, because bearing in mind, nobody taught us when we were doing teachers training that we need to teach online, because we never had that in the curriculum. Neither did we have that in our mind. However, a pandemic came, i.e. COVID-19, which actually forced us to start teaching online. So we needed to learn the skills and have the tools in order to do that. And nobody was teaching us, we had to do that ourselves. So for some of us, YouTube was our tutor and our teacher. I must say YouTube was my teacher, and I must thank YouTube for that, because it enabled me to learn the online platform, to know what to do, and even how to do this platform I'm on now, how to connect Zoom with Facebook, because I had to go on YouTube to do that. And I must say that YouTube, a fantastic tutorial. So it's actually have taught a lot of us educators, and we have now gained a new skill, one which wasn't given to us as teachers trainers when we were teaching, but one that was given to us either by ourselves or through YouTube. So we now an educator who are now equipped for the 21st century and now able to teach online. I am not saying that it was easy. By no means it wasn't. But at the same time, it was necessary, because I feel that education needed to have a shift in terms of electronically, because every other industry have had the shift except in education, because we were still teaching in the same way our great-grandparents were being taught. So we needed that shift, but it is sad that we were forced to do it on a crash course. We didn't have time to come up for air. We just had to, it was like a treadmill. We just had to be on this treadmill. And I must say, educators, we now have to come off this treadmill and remind ourselves that when we became trained as educators, we did not become an excellent educator straight away. It was a process. So we now need to see the online platform as a process. And you need to start giving yourself credit for that. If you don't see it as a process, you are going to be burnt out, because you cannot continue to pump. The same way you saw your role as an educator as a process to become an excellent educator, you now need to see the online platform as a process. You cannot learn everything all at once on the platform. It's a gradual process. So please stop listening to other people attacking you. Let them go. Take your time and do what you have to do. Right. I would now need to address my guests. Thank you very much for coming on the online platform. I am really grateful for that. And it was, it is so lovely that you actually take up the opportunity. I am really pleased. Thank you very, very much. Can you please introduce yourself, tell the audience where you come from, this, the age group you teach, and the area, the area of the country you came from. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Elizabeth Bryce, and I am from Virginia, which is in the United States of America. I live about 30 minutes from the White House, where the president lives. So I'm in a highly metropolitan area. I have been teaching for 18 years. I have taught mostly kindergarten. I've taught first grade and third grade. I have 3 degrees. I have one in psychology, another one in elementary education, and I have my master's degree in educational leadership and administration. So 2 of those 18 years, I was interning as an administrator, but my passion lies in the classroom with the children, unlocking those little brains. So I went back into the classroom where I've been ever since.
Wow, thank you. It's interesting, as I keep saying all the time, education is not a job that pays us a real high salary. We go into education because we are passionate, because we feel that we want to teach young minds. And as Elizabeth just said to us, that she was an administrator, which I'm sure paid a lot more than the teaching, but she's gone back into teaching because she liked being in the classroom. And we do it because we love the classroom. So when your parents and politicians are ready to attack us, it's needless, because we're not in the job for the money. 90% of educators are not there for the money. We're there because we have a passion, because we want to educate. We feel that we're making a difference. We're impacting knowledge, all of that. And you guys need to realize that in everybody's life, they were one of us. They had an educator in their life. All profession had an educator. Please don't forget that when you guys are attacking us. Okay, we're not mourning, I'm just telling you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for coming on. And what was it like for you when you actually start coming on the online platform, bearing in mind that you were not trained on the online platform as myself, you had no skills on the online platform, or if you did, wasn't a lot. So what happened? Tell us about it.
My whole entire world has been flipped upside down. I would consider myself a master teacher. I was actually 2 years ago nominated for Teacher of the Year in the state of Virginia, which is, that's out of 80,000 people. So that was a huge, huge honor. But technology is not my thing, particularly when you work with the little guys. You're using, teaching kinesthetically. Everything is hands-on. So March 13th, 5 minutes left in the day, and my principal came over the announcements and said, no one can leave, and we have a stand-up staff meeting in the library. We went down to the library, and he said, we're going to be closed for 3 weeks. So turn off your computers. There is no work for 3 weeks. We're closing for 2 weeks, do cleaning up the building, and the next week is spring break, and we're going to come back after that. So I left on March 13th with, my lunchbox. During those 3 weeks, the governor shut schools down for the remainder of the year. So I had literally absolutely nothing home with me. No plans, no resources, no books, no nothing. I mean, my kids are grown, so I don't have little kid, things at my house anymore. And we had to teach online, but with absolutely nothing. Platforms, I had never used Zoom before, ever in my life. But my first time using Zoom was with 28 5-year-olds.
Wow.
So there was a large learning curve there. So what they did in Virginia, because of the way that the school system shut down, is you could not teach any new material. You could only review material for the rest of the year, which was still a challenge because I didn't have any of my resources with me. So we were kind of recreating the wheel for the rest of the year online. I became a web designer, tech support, you name it, that was my job. And there were lots of tears shed during that time. Wow. And then the school year ended. It was pretty rough, I would say. And then I don't typically teach summer school, but I taught it this past summer because I wanted to have more experience with our online platform before this next year came in. So I taught summer school, and I received some training on our online platform. It's something called Canvas is how we deliver our instruction now. And that was helpful. And then they delayed the opening of school this year. I don't go live with children until Tuesday, but we've had 3 weeks of intense training. But I mean, it's hard to sit in front of a screen, for 8 to 10 hours every day, just learning something brand new. And we're not learning how to teach children. We're not learning how to, unlock minds. We're learning how to work online and technology.
Okay. So the fact is, you were just learning the tools, and now you have to implement it as to how to teach this, because you are teaching little things. So how was that when you actually start teaching them?
Extremely difficult. I found my biggest worry over the summer was it was brand new crop of kids, because they were summer school kids and friends come from different schools, was not being able to form relationships with them, because that's really important for, when they're brand new, you have to garner trust. But I was wildly successful doing that. So that was great. Now, I did notice that online learning, it doesn't work for all kids. It really doesn't. In kindergarten in particular, there's a lot of movement. I would never, our live instruction blocks are 45 minutes long. I would never in my classroom sit and talk to children for 45 minutes. Talk to them for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You get up and you do some sort of activity. We're just having to rethink everything right now and how we're going to do it.
So how did you teach when you just had the first set of lockdown? What did you do in terms of, how did you teach the children? What did you do? Because you say it's 45 minutes, but how did you give them 5 minutes block? What did you do?
So for when we shut down in this last spring for COVID, it was all review. There was only review, no new instructions. So I worked with my team and we made up choice boards, and it would be things that the kids could do at home and they could submit it, but we couldn't actually grade any of their work either. So they just got to do things that they wanted to do, and then over Zoom, we would discuss, I'd pick an objective and we discuss that objective and share our work, et cetera, et cetera. And then I also did my own, I did bedtime stories every night over Facebook Live. Yeah, so I would just read bedtime stories to any children. I invited, the whole neighborhood, the whole school would tune in for bedtime stories with Mrs. Rice. So really, I was just trying to keep the connection, because that was also a very scary time for a lot of people, because they didn't know what was going on. Some of their parents had lost their jobs. It was really tough. So for me, in the spring, what was most crucial was keeping the kids engaged and keeping them, being a safe space for them.
Wow. How was the bedtime story? Did the children interact? How was it? It must have been real fun.
Those I just did on Facebook Live. So they could just, watch them at their leisure. So it was, my daughter was home from college, so she would just film me doing that. My Zooms, a long way. In the beginning, everyone's talking at the same time, and kids, they run around with their screen like this all over the place. And, over summer school, I had one little girl who always wore a t-shirt and her little undies, no shorts. I'm like, honey, on pants. So there's been a lot of trial and error to figure out, how it's going to work best.
Thank you for that. In terms of engagement, how are you able to engage the students? The very first time you came onto the platform, how were you able to engage them?
So, I can tell you what we're going to do coming up, starting on Tuesday. So we made toolkits for them. The teachers went into the building and we made very specific toolkits for 130 kindergartners.
Okay.
And we had last week, we stood in the car rider line and we all had signs with our names, and we had the kids drive through with their parents and they had their name, they were holding it outside of the car so they could put a face to the name with their teachers. So you get some sort of connection there.
Yeah.
First week, we're going to do just little all about me's. So, every student's going to get the opportunity there, lots of wiggling, lots of dancing. And then starting the second week, we're calling them lunch bunches. We'll do a breakout room after the Zoom students, and myself and my assistant will sit and we will just get to know, the little groups. And then we're not going to really dive into too much instruction until the third week, because you really have to build, that relationship with the kids.
Wow. Because the fact is, a lot of them now coming back, and they have been away for a while now, and they have not had any structure.
Right.
So it would be so interesting, because I'll be visiting you again when you actually start again, so we can actually look at what it was like, because now we can only imagine what it would be like for, we actually teaching the set of students the second time around.
Right.
And I do hope that when we go back the second time around, some of the tools that we've learned and some of the technique we've learned on the online platform, we would now be able to put it into operation. Because in terms of behavior, what was the behavior like with your little diamonds? Because they were what, how old are they? 6 years old?
Anywhere between 4 to 6.
4 to 6. So you had some 4-year-olds on this platform when you started. So what happened? What do you do with a 4-year-old?
It's interesting. You have to be very well planned out for sure, and just lots of room for movement. My favorite is Jack Hartman. He can be found on YouTube, and he does educational songs and dances. They're 2 to 3 minutes long, but after 5 minutes, you have to stop and get up and do a dance break to recalibrate them and bring them back in. I honestly really truly believe that kindergarten teachers are going to have the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And I feel like kindergarten students are actually at the biggest deficit too, not being able to come in to school. There is no replacement for, in the building, classroom teacher in the elementary level, in my opinion. So I have a high school kid, a middle school kid, and a college kid, and they all do online, and they're fine doing it. But they've also spent the majority of their lives already making those social connections with other people. A lot of these kids have been isolated since March, and they just need it so bad to have that social interaction.
Mm-hmm. You see, thank you. You see, it's like it's going through my head. I'm thinking, my goodness, you have 4-year-olds. So when you actually went onto the platform, yes, I understand you did not have to teach anything new, but how many of those children did you have on the online platform when you went back? After you had the lockdown, you were not teaching anything new to them. So did they actually bother to turn up? How many of them actually turned up?
26, and on a regular basis, I would have 20 that would participate. Now, some kids, their parents were essential workers and still had to go into the daycare setting, so they were unable to participate. If they're going into daycare from 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, there wasn't a way for them to participate. Now, the way that we're doing it start in the fall on Tuesday is we do synchronous and asynchronous. So I'll be doing live instruction, and then it's double the work for the educators. So I'm going to do live instruction, and then my asynchronous, which is on my Canvas platform, is a replica of my live instruction. So the kids that cannot be there for live instruction still have an opportunity to learn through the asynchronous learning.
Okay. Thank you. The fact that you were actually teaching them when we just had the lockdown, right? And you were teaching no new information, and you had 20 to 26. That's you had a fantastic number. Your attendance was brilliant.
Now I teach in a well-to-do neighborhood, and most of the moms are stay-at-home moms. So these kids have a lot of support. It's very different. Our county is huge, and on the other side of the county, it's very different. There's a lot of turnover rate, with parents coming in and out, et cetera. Predominantly English is the first language where I teach, but on the other side of the county, it's not at all. They're mostly Title I schools. I don't know if you're familiar with what a Title I.
Yes.
On the other side of the county. So I am, the students that I teach are, for the most part, very blessed with a lot of support, but there are going to be a lot of kids who are unfortunately going to fall through the cracks with this, and my heart bleeds for those kids and their families.
Yeah, that is so, oh my goodness. So when you actually went on the platform, you already had your community, your students already formed the community, because you had them from January, right? So therefore, it was just a transition onto the platform when you actually had them.
I had those kids since August. So I had them from August to March. And then March, we were done for the rest of the year.
Okay. So which means you were you and your student had a bond, so that wasn't a problem. But in terms of how did the children find it when they were teaching, Miss Rice was in the classroom, all of a sudden they're not able to hug you because you're on a camera screen. So what was that like for the children? What were they saying to you?
I actually think the children were pretty resilient. And I also, I would meet with them outside of the classroom in outdoor spaces, like an ice cream shop. So, and we could all maintain social distancing when we were out there, and I wore a mask and requested that the kids did too, but just so that we could still keep that connection with each other. That was important, you know, because one morning they woke up and had all their friends, and then the next morning they woke up and weren't going to have their friends for the, again, you know, period. So I think it's going to be a lot harder to do come Tuesday because I don't already have an established relationship with my kids yet.
Yes.
So it's going to be a challenge to make that happen. But like I said, I was successful in summer school. But summer school, I only had 14 kids and it was a half day. So it was more attainable. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm up for it.
Exactly. Even 14 in the summer school was quite a lot in terms of online teaching.
And you want to know what the biggest challenge really is with online teaching is really gauging where students are academically because their parents do their work for them. It's very frustrating. You know, for summer, every assignment, we had daily assignments that they had to turn in and everything was 100% correct. I'm like, okay, people, we're in summer school in kindergarten. There's no way you're getting every single thing, you know, correct, you know, across the board. But that's a big issue is parents doing students' work.
Yeah. Why do you think parents are doing students' work?
I think it's a bit of a pride thing. You know, I don't want my student to fall behind or not understand or.
It is so much because it's like they don't want a situation where every child have got, you know, 80% or 90% and the child who is working at their own ability,
right,
you know, got less. That's a real big challenge. I'm not too sure. How do you think that you could overcome that?
Well, I have to be very straightforward with families, and I shared my experience with them. You know, this is what I saw. I taught summer school on purpose, and I did it to get my feet wet and to figure this out so that when your kids come to me, we can hit the ground running and not waste time. So here are some observations that I have made. And hopefully by putting that out there right away, then they'll think about like, maybe I really shouldn't, you know, people that don't work with children on a daily basis or don't understand brain development, you can't teach a 4, 5, 6-year-old something once and they get it. That's not how it works. You have to build and build, and that takes time. I know if you're not an educator, you could get easily frustrated if your child doesn't pick it up right away.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic, though. The fact that you actually realize that the parents are helping the children. When you actually put it out there, you know, it's interesting because it means that they will actually have to face up to it because you actually put in the mirror in front of them and say, these are my observations. It doesn't do the children any good. It's better if you allow them so you could make a valid judgment of their ability.
Right. Because I don't know how to help them if I don't know where they are.
Exactly. And sooner or later down the line, because they're not going to be on the platform forever.
Right.
You know, so what happened, when I say, in January or February when they go back into the classroom?
Right.
That's the point. That is such a good point.
And my county did something that was great to address the lost time because we basically we do 4 quarters here in Virginia. So they lost the entire last quarter. So what the county did was they switched our pacing and our curriculum, and they're starting, except for kindergartners because they weren't affected. But from first grade on, every teacher has a unit 0 that you teach. So you're teaching them that missed instruction from the last quarter before you begin your new instruction. So I was very happy about that.
Okay, that's very good because it means that they're actually taking into consideration what have been missed and we now have to address it. That's very good. That's very good.
And then we have federally mandated testing here called the Standards of Learning, and it's across the United States. There was a waiver put in to dismiss them last year, and then they're trying to get the waiver to dismiss them again this year, which I think is very valid. If you're going to spend an entire quarter teaching, you know, that unit 0, how are you going to get through the rest of your curriculum particularly when you're on this platform. I mean, I normally have my kids for 7 hours a day. We do full day kindergarten. So what I would normally be able to teach in 7 hours, currently, I only have 2 45-minute blocks of time to teach them. And that's it.
Okay, all right. So which means that you would normally be doing 7 hours, but you're only doing 2 45 minutes. What do you think? How do you think that works in terms of them and you?
So I don't particularly think it works very well. However, given our circumstances, it's the best that we can do for right now. At 45 minutes is too long for a kindergartner to sit in front of a computer. I think that's awful. But you have to take into consideration that most of these families have 3 kids in elementary school. So, the parent has to be able to stagger the technology use for one. If you have 4 kids and 1 computer, for example, I have a family with 10 kids. They have 10 kids and they have 1 device. So their times are going to overlap, and then you have to decide as the parent, who's going to get it, who's going to get my time right now, who's going to get my help. And by the way, both of those parents work too with the 10 kids.
Oh my goodness.
That family had several of them. Like I said, I've been teaching for 18 years. The older kids end up watching the younger kids. Well, if the older kids are responsible for their own learning, so none of this is ideal. None of this replaces the in-person teacher, but we don't have a choice. We don't have an option. We have to do what's best for our children. So what we're doing right now in the name of my county is called Prince William. In Prince William, for the first quarter, which is until November, the beginning of November, we're all virtual across the county. And then the goal is something called Return to Learn. So after the first quarter, then we're supposed to go into a hybrid model where they're there 2 days a week, and then they're doing asynchronous learning 3 days a week. However, some people are virtual the whole entire year. I am one of those people. I am immunocompromised and have been very, very ill before. So I am teaching virtually for the entire year. So I'm going to teach that vulnerable population that also have, health conditions.
Oh my goodness. So it's trying to learn know your children, as well as trying to put them on the online platform. Whoa, that's it, especially the 4 to 6 year old you're teaching. That I find really challenging than any other group, because how do you teach 4 to 6 year old on the online platform when they're sitting there with this computer and they're ready to run off with this computer?
What am I gonna have for snack? Look at my dog. Do you want to see my bedroom? And even, I'll have kindergartners come in and they're holding their pencil like this. And so, normally it's hand over hand where I would teach them correct pencil grip. So instead, I'm having to, I heard you thanking YouTube. It's a wonderful resource. I'm using YouTube, SchoolTube, all kinds of things to show quick little clips. I've probably already spent $2,000 in resources for my basement classroom, just so I can, show them things, tactile type of things that I can. Not everyone is, blessed like that. I happen to be married to someone who owns his own business and is successful. So I feel very bad for the teachers who, live in an apartment by themselves and can't do all that type of stuff. It's a challenge. No matter which way you look at it, it's a huge.
Yeah, it is a huge challenge. Do you find that the children that your last set of children that was on the platform, when they actually came onto the platform, did you see that the confidence actually depleted? What was it in terms of the confidence?
Kind of depended on the child. Some of them loved it and they just wanted to get on and see their friends, and they would do their work and they would share. And some of them just wouldn't, and some of them fell off. For example, I had a little boy with autism last year. He could not stand to look at a screen. He didn't like seeing himself on the screen. And so he stopped coming for the whole rest of the year. So he missed everything. And I'm really concerned for him going into first grade now with this. I don't know what he's going to do. Highly intelligent. So I don't think missing the academics for this child will be, not going to be hoping that we return soon. I have a feeling because I live in such a populated area that my gut tells me that we're going to be online for the whole year.
Mm-hmm. So what's the virus like in terms of, is it decreasing or is it still increasing? What's the situation?
It was decreasing, but once we moved into what our governor calls phase 3, people, when they were going out, were taking proper precautions. And so now our numbers have begun to increase again.
Right. So the fact that it's increasing, it wouldn't be comfortable for them to put you guys back into the physical classroom.
In most of the universities, large universities around here, the college kids were sent back. They've shut down the universities again, and so all the college kids are home. I have a daughter in college, but she goes to college in Florida, and she came home in April and was home the whole time. She went back to school about 3 weeks ago. She actually just texted me. She has strep throat. There. At least it's not coronavirus. But they have a COVID unit at her school. So if you get sick, they send you to a COVID unit, which is.
Okay.
Yes, but the major universities in Virginia, North Carolina, our surrounding states have all shut down again.
Wow. So your daughter, she's going to come back or she's going to remain there?
No, she's staying at school as of now. She goes to a smaller school. She goes to a private university.
Okay.
There's only a couple thousand kids there, and they have very, very strict protocols put in place.
Okay. So that's a plus anyway in terms of, what is in place to support, the whole situation that we now have. In terms of engagement, how did you engage the children? In terms, how do you actually, the 4-year-old, you didn't teach anything new. They were still running off with a computer.
I always start with, we do our morning meeting, and it's always an engaging question. And it's a question every single day. So they introduce themselves, and then everyone gets an opportunity to share. And we have a talking stick that we pass around, and you can't share unless you have your talking stick. So they get really jazzed about that. They're big fans of being able to share. Sometimes it'll be a movement activity that we do instead. Keep the excitement up. I did Fun Friday every Friday, and it would be something totally wacky, and I participated in every week. So did Crazy Hair Day. I put a giant rainbow tutu on my head. I mean, they just loved it. We had ice cream parties together, so we would all get our ice cream and we'd eat our ice cream. And the day before, their assignment was, we were doing persuasion writing, so they had to persuade me of what the best kind of ice cream was. They wrote about it, and then they got to bring their ice cream, the next day to the Zoom. So, like, I'm kind of going back to what I was saying before, is that works if you have a parental support system at home. But it doesn't work when you don't have that at home. I mean, I'm heavily relying on parents to be involved and invested in their child's education right now.
You have to, because you are teaching 4-year-olds. The parents have to be around to put this computer on for them, to make sure they're there. So do you have the parents sitting with the children, or you just know the parents is around? What's the situation with the parents?
So I have, I did a Zoom with my parents on Friday, where I walked them through my program, and then I'm doing another one tomorrow. And keep in mind, you're talking about teachers not teaching for the money. Friday was a holiday, tomorrow's a holiday, and I'm still working with my parents to walk them through.
Exactly.
Let me see if I have the option to share my screen. I can show you. Oh, it's disabled. If you can enable me to share my screen, I can show you what I use.
Enable. Elizabeth, I don't know how I do that.
Let's see. I'm not. I can't do it from this thing because anyway. I showed them my whole page. Everything. I used pictures that the kids can learn how to do it without knowing how to read. So I told the parents, sit with them at least the first week, so that you can show them how to mute, unmute. I have lots of visuals that I've made. I made this one.
Wow.
I'm to unmute. But again, this is all stuff that I've invested in a lot. Paper, ink, laminators, those are expensive.
Wow. So
Yes, my
therefore,
husband is definitely ready for me to pump the brakes on my spending, that's for sure.
you have to, because it's like all these tools you have to buy to make sure that you're ready. That's the thing about it. People don't understand, as educators, especially being on the online platform, you have no choice than to
Right.
invest in certain tools, because you're not in the classroom to say, okay, you could actually pull this and pull this here and send it to laminate, or you do it lamination yourself. You're at home. So therefore you have to find a way to make sure that you have the tools ready for the children.
Well, and I don't want the kids to miss out. It's not their fault that this is going on. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do what's necessary in order to make sure that my kids have everything that they need to be successful.
You see, that's the thing about it. You are fortunate because you are able to afford to do that. There's some educators, they have no choice than to do whatever they have in their possession to make it the best they can.
And I've been there too. When I first started, the first 10 years of my teaching career, I had a second and third job,
Yeah.
so I've definitely been there.
Exactly. So when people think that, oh, educators, they have money. No, we do not have money. Any tools we have is, if we're blessed enough to have husbands who are able to invest, our money doesn't stretch very far by itself.
The first decade of me teaching, I bartended on the weekends. I made more money bartending in one weekend than I did an entire week in my classroom. And I was exhausted because I worked on Friday night and I worked a double on Saturday. So I worked all day Saturday, Sunday, get up, go to church, and just come home and crash, and then try to get as much rest as I could before Monday and start and do it all over again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why some educators have to find two jobs, because one job is not enough to even survive on.
Right.
That's the thing about it. It's really, so when people are thinking that, oh, we get a lot of money no, we don't. We do it for the love of the job.
Yes.
For the love of the job.
And I've always been in public, in the public sector, but our schools around here are very overcrowded. So I have 7 kids in my class this year. When my daughter, who's in college now, when she went to middle school, she had 42 kids in her algebra class. So, and math was a struggle for her. So I took her out of public school and put her in private school so she could get a smaller class size. So I paid for her to go to private school until she graduated high school.
Wow. So you're saying in the public school, there are 40-something children in a class?
She didn't even have a desk in one of her classes. And I said, no way, I can't do this. So that was me working double, triple overtime too, so I could pay her tuition. I feel called to work in the public sector. This is where I feel like the Lord put me to be, right here, and shine a light and teach, and I'm good at it and I'm confident in it. Online teaching, I'm not as confident, but I'm going to fake it until I make it.
Exactly. You have to fake it until you make it. That's very, very true. And it's a gradual process. You cannot learn everything straight away. So it's like going through just remember when you came off teaching college, etc., you didn't become an excellent teacher just like that. It's a gradual 100%. Process, and we need to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah. You learn by doing. So I know there's been so much anxiety from my teacher community around me. I'm talking, the tears have been flowing, but it's, I just keep reminding myself that once I get in, it's going to get easier. And it works that way on summer school too. And it makes a difference when you see the kids and, you see their sweet smiling faces. And when a light bulb goes off for them and they figure something out, that's when you're like, yes.
Yes, you've got it. Yeah. The sad thing for you is, because it's sad and plus, because you're teaching such young children, they cannot even help you when you don't know what to do.
I know.
That's the thing about it. Whereas when you're teaching older children, if you don't know what to do, they're trying to figure it out, and some of them might know, etc. But when you're teaching these little things, they're looking on you to have all the answers. And some of the parents probably don't even have a clue as what needs to be done.
Right. I told the parents to sit with them through the first week so they know how to log on, they know what buttons to push, teach them that mute, unmute button feature. There's a reaction, raise your hand feature, teach them that. But I said, after that, you go away during online learning and let me do my thing, because kids they're a little bit timid in front of their parents, but when their parents are gone, it's a totally different ball game. And then you can help them with the asynchronous learning for enrichment when I'm done with my part. But I am the expert, so trust that I'm going to be able to do this.
How do you feel? What's your feeling in terms of the whole thing, the whole online platform? What is it for you as an educator in terms of your mental well-being, your physical being, what is happening for you? Because like you, I've been in a number of the educators group and the tears are flowing, because I've been asking them questions, what it was like in terms of, self-care. And a lot of them, self-care is out the window. And I'm saying, you need to do self-care, because I put something in there, and I think it was 200 and something, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I need to answer them all. And I've been going through answering them all to see whether doing self-care, to say, okay, well, that's good, but some of them say to me that self-care is out the window, and I need to say to them it's important. And it's tiring me going and answer all this, going through it, but I feel that I need to, especially those that are not doing self-care.
Right. It's important to set boundaries, because when your classroom is now in your home, you don't get away from it. So every time a parent emails me, I get a notification right on my phone. So turning that feature off was number one. I had to do that. I can't just stop what I'm doing with my own family and respond to you. These are my hours. These are the hours that I'm sticking to, whether or not I'm done. So I haven't done that the past 3 weeks setting up, because I felt so much pressure to figure all this out. Typically, it's Labor Day weekend here. Typically for Labor Day weekend, we go away to our lake house, and we're out on the boats and stuff, having fun. Didn't go this weekend because I felt like I needed to be here in case a parent needed me. I know I needed to do a little extra work with Zooms on them. So mentally, this has been very, very, very draining and incredibly tough on my family. But I felt like I needed to put all this work in the beginning to make it a little bit easier going forward. So next week is going to be a lot of trial and error, because this is brand new for a lot of these parents, and for all of my students, this is brand new. But I feel like once we get past that, and once I get into my little small groups and I'm able to make connections, when my classroom is successful, when my students are successful, I feel better. So I need to see that success, and then I can relax a little bit.
It is so true, though, because for all educators, once our students are able to negotiate the platform, once we realize the little smiling faces and they're happy with it, then you as an educator, you become happy too.
Right.
People need to realize that we are not in the business to fail students. When students succeed, we also feel successful. And parents need to realize that we are here to look after your children. We have your children's best interests as well.
Right.
So instead of you guys,
the way the shift has happened, back in March when everything stopped and school let out, teachers were heroes, in all parents' eyes. And now we're all lazy and none of us want to work. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? First of all, no teacher made the decision to stay at home. Are you kidding me? I would give my right arm to go back into the classroom right now. Staying home and working is terrible, and it's double the work on me, and it's things I don't know and I'm having to learn. I'd much rather do what I've been doing for 18 years and be able to love on those little babies in the classroom. Like, it's not preferred, but it's what we have to do. And I just wish that we could all get on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. Because the interesting thing about that is when I started doing the platform, and I keep on saying to my educators, I say, oh, the parents are singing our praises. I say to them, let's just give it a few more months and you're going to see what happens. Because their mind, they're so fickle, they forget that we were the same people you guys were praising.
Yes.
All of a sudden, we are lazy. We don't want to go back to work who we think we are. We are coward. And we get all of that. But I have to remind people that Our job is very different. For example, Elizabeth, your job, when you have this little foyer, they don't know how to wipe their noses. Their nose is running. You constantly have a box of tissue. You wipe your nose all day.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, that's what I was nervous about in the beginning when they were talking about going through the hybrid model. You know, it's very difficult for the children to cry when their parents drop them off the first couple days of school. And what am I supposed to hold out a yardstick and say you can't come over here and hug me because you have to be 6 feet away and make sure that little mask stays on your face all day? That's not possible. Little kids don't know how to social distance. That would be very unfair to do to them and to the teachers. You know, like I said, I have underlying health issues. I would have had to have leave the entire field had I been forced to go back into the classroom.
Exactly, because when you think in terms of our jobs are so very different from everybody else's job, when they actually constantly compare us, oh well, in the supermarket they've all opened. Really?
I've actually heard my own husband make that remark multiple times. And I said, that is not the same as being in a classroom with no ventilation for 7 hours with children from 27 different households.
Exactly. And the running noses, as you rightly say, when children are coming crying when the parents drop them off because it's new to them, you're supposed to say, hold on, physical distance, you cannot come close up to me. And
our students were not going to be allowed to go to the cafeteria. So they were going to eat lunch in our classrooms, which meant I didn't have a lunch break anymore, which is my only 20 minutes every day that I actually have a break. And there are other specials, you know, music, PE was going to be in our classroom still. That's my planning time. So my planning time is now gone because it would be broadcast over our big, they call them smart boards, the Promethean boards. So they were literally going to be in our classroom the entire time, me not have a break. Like, when do I get to go to the bathroom during that time? I mean, people who make the policy clearly are not teachers, because if you were a teacher, you would come up with a plan that actually works and adapt it. That's what we do.
It is so very true. That's why I say to people, they don't understand that when you're in the classroom, you cannot go to the toilet until it's your break time. Right. You are dying to go. Educators have very strong bladders. Right. We have no choice, because who are you going to get to watch your classroom while you go to the toilet? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. People don't understand that. That's why when educators are at home, when they, ask the question, what is really nice is going to the toilet when you want to.
100%. I said that when we got together for our first staff meeting. They said, what is working? And I said, being able to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. It is true. Because in any other job, people take this for granted. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In education, it is not for granted, because I know that sometimes when I'm teaching the younger group, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, or especially if you didn't have the time to go at lunchtime, you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, when is the next break? When do we finish? Because you cannot go, you have nobody to look after your classroom.
I hear my husband often he'll send me a message when he leaves his office for lunch. He leaves and goes to a restaurant. He's gone for an hour and a half. I race my kids to the cafeteria, drop them off, go make a copy, go use the bathroom, eat while I'm walking, answer emails, go right back to the cafeteria and pick them up.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a normal process for educators. You see, when because I've did university, I did college, and I've gone back into schools in the last 18 months, and I forgot what it was like. Mm-hmm. It's like I gone in there and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I need to plan. Oh my goodness, I need to get the students. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I need to go to the toilet. Do I have time? And it's like all of that. And as you say, everything takes place in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And it was, last year especially, it was a rude awakening, because I was teaching younger children and I realized, oh my goodness, I haven't gone to the toilet at lunchtime. So what's going to happen? I've got to be holding this until finish. Mm-hmm. Because it is so interesting. When you're teaching adults and when you're in a different job, you forget what it is like to teach the younger children. Because I've been in adults for the past few years, so I had forgotten what it was like to be teaching the younger children. Only when I went back last year for the first time, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I said, you were busy planning at lunchtime. You didn't go to the toilet. What's going to happen? And it was that actually brought up a real fear in me, realize that I am desperate, but I have no choice here.
Right. Right.
And it's interesting because it reminded me that I was taking it for granted because I was in college and university, and I forgot what it was like being back in the classrooms.
What's even that reminds me of, like, when I'm teaching a whole group lesson, after that, then I pull a small group to work with me, but I'm still monitoring the other groups, around the classroom that are happening. But they have that breakout feature on Zoom, but I can't do that with kindergarten because I'm not physically there for their breakout room. That doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a lot of time that I no longer have with them. So instead, I'll work with one small group, 6 children for 20 to 30 minutes, and then another small group. But again, that's going to depend on, are their parents going to be there to help them log on to the small group meeting, just fit in their schedule.
That is so true, though. In terms of your planning and your preparation and your lesson, do you feel that with the physical classroom and the online class platform, what it was like in terms of your planning? Could you have actually taken things from the physical classroom and just fit it into the online classroom? Were you able to do that?
Not really. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the time constraint that we're under right now. So our focus is on language arts and math. Science and social studies are going to be once a week, which typically we would do every day. For a 45-minute block, we'd have our social studies science. Our language arts instruction is 170 minutes a day in the classroom. But again, we're talking about 45 minutes. But that 45 minutes includes our morning meeting, our little sharing prompt, etc. So it's a very, very small amount of time that we have to do as much as we need to do. So the county did slow down the pacing. We're not sure yet what grading looks like or what assessments look like. I do know that we're going to be doing a statewide assessment. It's a baseline assessment starting the first day. We have like a 4-week window to get it done. But again, I'm going to be assessing one-on-one over screen. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go.
Yeah, that's some of the challenges, because in terms of planning your lesson, do you think that you plan less on the online platform or more on the online platform? How do you compare the physical classroom?
Currently, I'm probably planning more, but I'm not going to get through everything I have planned. I've got my nice all my lesson plans are all typed up for every single day of the week. Let's see, that's 2 days going. I've got everything typed up. Now, will I get through all of that? No. The time it's taking me to plan is like quadruple. Number one, because I can't do what I would typically do in the classroom, which is a lot of hands-on thing. So we're having to figure out how to do these online or creative ways to show them how to do something without physically being there. I mean, a lot of kindergartners don't know how to hold their scissors. So,
wow.
How to do that. And then that's where I'm relying on some parental support there again. So just doing the best we can, really. I mean, that's all we can do, is the best that we can do. And I hope and pray for an end to COVID and to get back into the classroom where we should be. I'm thinking that there'll probably be a shift in education as a whole, like you were saying in the beginning. For the older kids, I think some of this online stuff is great. It really is great. And with as overcrowded as our schools are, I think this could be a solution for the older kids. For the little ones, I think they have to be in the classroom. Learn that you need that solid foundation, that it can be taught through a screen, but I don't know how effective it is through a screen. I think it's more authentic when you're with them one-on-one.
I see that as well, especially some of the things that you need to teach them, because you are relying on the parents, assuming that the parents will be able to teach this child how to hold the scissors. And it's looking at all the fine motor skills, have the parents got the skills to teach the children these fine motor skills, which is required at that age?
Right. When I teach them letter formation, I use like cookie sheets and sand, multicolored sand, because they get that sensory input by using their finger and drawing in the sand. Well, I can't require every household to go buy sand.
Exactly. So there it is again. It's like relying on whatever tools the parents have at home to help these children, negotiate what they need to learn. And that's one of the hardest things. As you rightly say, for the older children, that's fine. But for the younger children, in terms of their brain formation, in terms of, they're so tactile, they want to hold you. We as a human being, we're social animals. And for children, even more so, especially the younger ones.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I do feel that COVID have actually enabled educators to become innovative. Because I listen to you and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm visualizing your whole setup. Because it have actually enabled you and other educators like all of us to be more innovative, more creative, because we had to think outside of the box, not just little outside of the box, major, getting out of the box, completely out of this box, and thinking ways that we could engage the children on this online platform. And it hasn't been easy because, the minute you slip up, you lose the engagement.
And it'll be, in the beginning of the year in kindergarten, they haven't sat and been in structure before, so this is brand new. So it'll be a challenge to. You have to build on that stamina a little by a little by a little by a little, and until you've got it down. And it'll be a process. And the word that I keep using with the parents, my families, is grace. I'm going to give you and your kids a lot of grace, and I'm certainly hoping that you're going to give it back to me.
Yeah, that is fantastic. This is something I keep on saying to educators. I say you need to give yourself some slack, because when you see on the platform you and I have been, when you read it, it's like they're not giving themselves a break. It's like boof, 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 boof. And they feel that they need to learn every single thing for the online platform to teach it straight away. And I'm saying, no, you don't.
Right. You got to start small and become good at that. And, I found that all of the things that we were trained on, you can't take over all of them. Actually, my ITC, our technology specialist, he gave me the best piece of advice. Out of all of these things that I've taught you, pick two and really dive into two of them and use those two to the best of your abilities. Because if you try to become an expert in all of these, you're going to fail and you're going to get overwhelmed and burnt out. Don't do that to yourself. Like that is really good advice, because I want to be good at all of them, and I want to, be able to be the best at everything. But, you need to be able to pick off a bite that you can actually chew.
It is very true. And I'm afraid when I go onto this platform and look at some of the educators, they just want to do so much. And I'm thinking, this is burnout station, because they're not even looking after themselves. And if you don't look after yourself, you don't have it to give your children. Because
teacher burnout in the classroom is 5 years. Most teachers don't make it past 5 years. They quit and go into a different profession. And I mean, I remember feeling that too in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it is too much. Well, Debbie, I have to wrap this up because I have to go pick up the kid.
Yes. That's fine. Okay, what one tip you're going to, which 3 tips you're going to give to educators in terms of, they're now going on the online platform like you are doing. So what 3 tips are you going to give them?
So tip number 1 is the most important thing that you can do is foster a relationship with your students and their families. That's the most important, because you're not going to get anywhere if you don't foster those relationships. Right. Number 2 is lower your expectations. I no longer have the same amount of time or resources to be able to do everything that I did before. So maybe not, it is lowering them, but set yourself new expectations. And then number 3 is celebrate every victory along the way. No matter how small it is, celebrate it.
Right, thank you. I do like that. Celebrate your victory. Educators, you need to realize that you are good enough, you are enough, you're doing enough. You know, you need to celebrate where you're at, you need to accept where you are, stop beating up yourself. You know, it's nice that Elizabeth said, give yourself grace and remind your parents to give you grace as well, right? It is so important. Thank you so very much, Elizabeth, for coming onto the platform and sharing your experience with us. Thank you very much, my Facebook wall. Have a good evening, night, morning. Stay blessed. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.